As we prepare for the Lion Envoy to be released, I would like to point out a quote by the late great Martin Luther King. He said, Martin Luther King Jr., he said, "We are not makers of history. We are made by history." So to continue in this saga, I would like to also give a shout out to some of my subscribers who made some incredible comments. Mr. Best 1571 said, "It makes absolutely no sense to integrate the battery into the car. It must be easy to be removed for replacement and recycle." People didn't think about that. "And a car is not a phone. I'm pretty certain this will be standard going forward. Maybe Elon knows this." Also, Ciaran Canning, my Irish warrior friend, said, "The Envoy launch will be this Wednesday, May 15, 7:30 p.m. Beijing, China. This means that it will be 7:30 a.m. New York time. So set your alarm clocks." Yes. And Michael Gray said, "Rather than counting sheep as I go to sleep, I think about Neo swaps." I love it. Also, Kim Riangsheng, "Happy Monday, MMM. Neo sub-brand Envoy will dominate the non-luxury EV brand. Emperor Lee is named EV Person of the Year for 2024. The US 100% tariff on Chinese EV is ludicrous. Open and fair competition. Neo's very smart. All key components are manufactured in-house. In the future, US can't sanction Neo chip phones, batteries, etc." And I spoke about this. Yes, we are becoming self-sufficient. So another person on my channel, they are not a subscriber. They said, "How will this affect us with the Envoy, blah, blah, blah," and I said, let history be your teacher. History, incidentally, was one of my favorite subjects in high school growing up in Trinidad, along with geography. And I didn't even understand what an impact it will mean in my life as I went on in life. So to continue this saga, China is the new Japan. The author continues, "For those with short attention span, you may need to click off of this video. Japan was the world's largest auto exporter until now. It depends on how you count it, but Japan was likely dethroned by China as the world's largest car exporter in the past year. All of China's effort to build EV manufacturing bore fruit. While the country was initially slow to adopt EVs in 2023, it had a whopping 37% EV market share, up from 5% in 2020 and 84% in 2015, leapfrogging several early adopter nations. But EV manufacturing has grown even faster, with Chinese EV production outpacing domestic demand and export rising rapidly in recent years as well. Why did this happen, he asks. It turns out Japanese industry is actually similarly to the US industry at the moment, in that it is dragging its feet on electric vehicles. In fact, even more so than US manufacturers. European manufacturers too are trying to slow the transition down. They are actually trying to slow it down, but they claim they want green energy. Automakers are even cutting production plans in a rapidly growing EV market, possibly in a cynical move to influence regulations, though it's clear their targets are too low already. While Biden has pushed for stronger emission standards, automakers seem determined to lobby against progress. And I spoke about this in the past. The lobbyist has really hurt America in the worst way. This has been going on since Vietnam. To give themselves a false sense of security that they can take their sweet time in transitioning to EVs. But regardless of how much automakers kick and scream about needing to build something other than massive gas-guzzling land yachts, I love the way he explained that, technology and world industry will continue their inexorable advancement. The industry can catch up, or it can continue dragging its feet and moving slower than its competition, somehow hoping to catch up from the losing position it's already in. None of this kicking and screaming is happening in China. As mentioned above, Chinese government has focused heavily on securing materials and on encouraging upstart EV makers, with a total of either 29 billion or 173 billion US dollars in subsidies from 2009 to 2022. Depending on whose numbers you accept, either of which are less than the hundreds of billions in subsidies allocated by the US in the Inflation Reduction Act or the 7 trillion global subsidy for fossil fuels. Wrap your head around that. And Chinese EV makers aren't playing a silly game of limiting their own commitments in order to push a myth of falling sales. Yes, a myth. That said, Chinese Dealer Association were granted a mere 6-month pause in regulations responding to a glut of unsellable gas cars, while also demanding that automakers stop building non-compliant vehicles immediately. Instead, they're building cars as fast as they can, selling them as fast as they can, and exporting them in as many ships as they can get their hands on, to the point where they're even building ships of their own like BYD. This has led to accusation that China is dumping EVs on overseas market, with Europe, which also subsidizes its own EV industry, considering retroactive tariffs. Yes. The US also set to announce a 4 times increase in existing tariffs against Chinese EVs under the Biden administration. This irony is, if Chinese taxpayers are subsidizing manufacturing before sending those cars overseas, that represents a wealth transfer, listen very carefully, from Chinese taxpayers to American ones. And another irony, China has so often been criticized for not doing enough. Remember that when they said China is polluting so much, while the rest of the world is trying to slow down in pollution. But now that China is going green, they say you're doing it too fast on climate change. And now we're criticizing them of doing too much, both with EVs and solar. This all sounds quite similar to the situation with Japan in the 70s. This is why I say history is your best teacher. And if you use history like the great living legend Ray Dalio, you will also make considerable money. Have you guys seen how oxen is exploding again? And it will continue as the years go by. I told you guys. But as with Japan, simply blocking out better options won't kick the West industries into gear. On the contrary, it will make our industry more complacent, and we're already seeing that happening as automakers keep begging governments to let them continue their unsustainable business model even as competition looms. So, guys, I will end the trilogy on that note and continue it on tomorrow. I spoke about oxen. You guys see it's over $3 now. I expect pullbacks, of course, but I expect this to be a monster in the future. I hope you guys found this video to be informational, inspirational, and motivational as we await the Lion Unvo. If so, guys, do not forget to hit that thumbs up. If you haven't yet subscribed, you might want to think about doing so, because in this channel, we have that warrior mindset, trying to wake up the middle class to get a piece of the pie for once. And like 50 said, we get rich or we die trying, guys.